Hi, welcome to the presentation on corporate planning, nerve center of the organization. Many of us may not be knowing in detail about what exactly the corporate planning department is all about. Actually, it is the one that drives the complete organization, whether it is immediate activity, short term, medium term, or long term. The entire blueprint is under the portfolio. So let us try to understand the various dimensions of corporate planning in this video presentation. So basically, before going into that, let us try to understand how exactly the business environment look like. The business environment has got two major components, namely the internal environment and the external environment. The external environment in turn will have two components, namely the micro environment and the macro environment. Let us first look into what exactly is the internal environment. It consists of the various components like organizational structure, the culture of the organization, the human resources, the physical resources, the technological capabilities, the value systems practiced by the organization, and also the vision, mission, and the long-term objectives. So, all these aspects play a major role in giving a shape to the corporate planning document or the plan of the organization itself. So everyone has got its own role to play. So it is very important to ensure all these aspects are fully under our control and we are fully committed to whatever we are talking about, all that. Then let us go into the macro environment drivers. Macro environment is basically the one where the majority of the forces are not in a very predictable state. For example, if you take the coronavirus today, in fact, it has caused a major havoc all over the world on different dimensions. But the whole world was not really prepared for it. So now we are seeing the aftermath. So we are only reacting to the development on every aspect of it. So technological is one of the very important aspect of the driver in the macro environment. In fact, during the pandemic situation, you would have seen the technology is playing a very important role, particularly in the digital payment and also this marketing, retail marketing, that is online ordering of goods and services, and so many things are all there. So every organization, every industry is getting prepared for the digital economy. So technology is a very, very important one. Political and legal. So political and legal forces are always very important. Again, during the pandemic situation, you would have seen the whole world is also trying to take a position, like who is responsible for all this one and what are the systems and procedures are available, how to ensure that such type of viruses do not recur in future. So a lot of political dialogue is going on in a very big manner. Again, the distribution of vaccine, you would have seen the Indian government has taken a very political position, like all the neighbors should be given a preference in supplying these vaccines. In fact, India has gifted a large amount of vaccine to several neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal, and all that, Bhutan, and all that. So political is always very important, and you can always see, when there is any political development taking place in any part of the world, you can see its impact on the stock exchanges and on all other related aspects. Third is economical. Obviously, unless the economy does well, the whole world cannot survive. So even when the pandemic broken out, so majority of that global economists are really worried whether this will slip into a typical depression what had happened in 1930s. Because today the whole world is already they're trying to come out of the problems and all that, and luckily they were able to control the damage due to the pandemic, and they're able to revive the economy faster than what they predicted. In fact, a lot of people are all working on how exactly the economy is going to bounce back. So whether it is going to follow a typical depression curve or whether it is going to take some other shape and all that. But definitely things are looking very positive. A lot of green shoots are visible, and really we have to wait and watch how the whole thing is going to unfold. So economy is one of the very, very important situation as well as the macroeconomical environmental drivers are all concerned. Then you are global. Obviously, we are in a very globalized environment. today the whole world is like a single village. So any impact on one part of the world, it affects the other parts of the world. In fact, because of that pandemic situation, when China was locked down and then even a lot of travel restrictions are all there, a lot of industries are all affected basically because majority of the supplies are all coming from China. So it will wake up call to the whole of the world. So they're trying to see how they will be able to diversify their supply chain position. And today, in fact, a lot of countries are also working on that one. So how exactly to attract the people who are coming from China or going for additional capacities outside China. Countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and so many other developing countries, particularly countries which have a lot of manpower and who will be able to provide a lower cost of production and all that, they're really working very hard to attract such type of investments. So global forces are also equally very important. Then obviously demography is a very important one. And one of the major strengths of India today is that we got a very young manpower, a young population. So this young population actually is generating a lot of demand for several such products. So that is one of the reasons why the economy is actually looking quite up. In fact, Indian economy is expected to become the third largest economy by 2030, and by 40 it is expected to may replace the United States as the second largest economy in the world and all that. So young folks play a very, very important role, and they're going to be part of the journey itself. And socio-cultural aspects. Obviously, today, with all this technological innovations and younger population, all that, the socio-cultural impact is also quite high. Different type of products are all coming up, and new technologies are coming very faster, attracting the younger people and all that. So socio-culture plays a very important role, and you cannot afford to ignore them, and they also play a very important role actually to address the various segments that is coming up in the market. So if you see there, all the macroeconomic drivers, the strategies will be more of a reactive in nature. We may not be able to predict it, even though a lot of work is going on to predict them very reasonably well, but many times a lot of disruptions happening, and so we are in position only to react to a situation. Then we will talk about the major drivers in the micro environment. The major drivers are obviously the customer. Today the customer is very, very important. And today, a lot of startups are actually working on addressing the pain points of the customers. Unless the pain points of the customers are going to be addressed there, you're not going to get any substantial growth in your market. So customers are very important, and equally important is your competitor, because the competitors can give you surprises. So you should have a thorough knowledge about the competitor. And so let us assume you want to buy a product. The best people to contact is many times not the company, but only the competitor, because the company will always talk positive and high aspect about the product. But if we talk to the competitor, only we'll know what are the limitations, what are the issues to be addressed there, and what are other things which are not really visible outside, maybe in terms of the quality of the product, the type of features and all that. So competitors are very, very important. Every organization is expected to have a business intelligence section to understand the competitors' actions, the future actions, everything. It is also called business intelligence. Then third is the market. Obviously, what is the market you're talking is important. Are you talking about a local market, your regional market, your national market, or international market? Accordingly, your entire corporate planning, your long-range planning also will get tuned to that one. Then suppliers. Suppliers are all quite important today, because the suppliers play a very major role in producing the quality production. Your cost control, only with unless you involve seamlessly the suppliers, you may not be able to reduce the cost and all. The suppliers play a very, very important role. Today they all become an extended part of an organization. So no more suppliers are considered as an outside entity. They are all very much part of the entity. So along with the supplier, you evolve a structure, evolve a system where you'll be able to manage the cost very effectively, and so that you'll be able to retain your customer and be able to win over more customers also. Organization is again a very important entity consisting of different type of people with different expectations and different roles to play. In the next slide, we'll see what exactly the organization I am talking here. Then finally, you're talking about the various intermediaries. So there are various people who are all part of your supply chain, who will be providing the logistics support and the warehouse support, and so many other intermediaries are available there. And today, with the cost under focus, organizations are trying to focus mainly on their core areas. and all the non-core areas they're trying to see whether they'll be able to outsource to somebody else. So managing these intermediaries through an outsourcing partner becomes very, very important. So organizations are trying to concentrate only on the core area where they will not be, where the competition will not be there, or where they will be able to add substantial value, and that is going to be a USP of the product of the organization itself. So if you talk about the organization, what are all the major players there, starting from your owner. So an owner of an organization, he may be an individual, a financial institution, or a venture fund. Today, with more and more startups coming out, the majority of the startups will have like angel investors who will be coming and going on a dynamic basis. So the owners will also keep coming and going. But in a very standard organization, the owners are all by and large fixed there, and they will have their own expectations from the investments they make in the company. Then we have board of directors, we have independent directors, we have nominee directors, and today government has brought in a lot of regulation in appointing all these people. And earlier, this is all just a nomination. But today, even a nominee director, they have to pass certain exams, they have to register the particular site, and unless they qualify and meet certain criteria, you cannot become a nominee director or an independent director. So a lot of SEBI has brought in a lot of rules and regulations to this particular one, and accordingly the roles and responsibilities also becoming larger and tougher. And the management staff. Obviously, we have top management staff, middle management staff, lower management staff, all that we have in many organizations. Then we have a unionized staff. So it may be a single union, it can be a multiple union, it can be a politically affiliated union, it can be a non-politically affiliated union. So we have all categories of people are all available there. And all the new organizations, they're trying to have a non-unionized staff. If you take, for example, the private sector banks, all the people are basically management staff. All other administrative and other services, they're already outsourced. So you're able to manage without a unionist staff. In fact, this is one of the important area where the MNCs are having a constant dialogue with the Chinese government to handle the situation for their advantage. But it's going to be a very tough job for them. And then you have the contract staff. You may be having consultants, you may be having a subject specialists. So all will be on the contract roles. So they will be providing some service to the organization. And finally, you have the outsourced team. In fact, it's one of the important team because they provide a lot of customer-facing services. And many organizations, unless they are properly trained there, so they will give a very bad image to the organization. For example, you take these credit card companies or you take telecom companies. Majority of the people like whenever they face a problem, they're not able to get a satisfied solution by talking to this helpline, because these helplines are all largely with outsourced team, and they will be able to operate within the brief. And once you want to go beyond that, so you'll have a lot of dissatisfaction. So it is very important to define the role of the outsourced team, to train them, because after all, the way this outsourced team deal with the customer, that decides the credibility of the organization itself. So it's one of the important aspects one should keep in mind. So having said all that, so what you're trying to say now, the corporate planning, it is becoming one of the very important department, because with the onset of WTO environment, the whole thing is getting very turbulent. Before WTO, we were a party to the WTO agreement. So the things are very much under control. The entire environment was very stable, and the competition was very stable. We are able to majority even the macroeconomic variables things are under control. Whether it's going to be technology, whether it is going to be social aspects and all that. But now with the entry of WTO into the picture, now the economy is getting opened up, and a lot of foreign competition is coming up. And one of the very important takeaways is that unless you are globally competitive, even you may not be able to survive in the local market. So whether it is going to be a local market, whether it is going to be an export market, so you need to be globally competitive. After all, the global players are present both in the domestic market and international market. So you have to really revisit your cost structure, revisit your quality component. You have to really address the pain points of the customers. And unless you do all that, you may not be able to retain your customer in the long run. So it is very, very important to become globally competitive, and that is where the role of corporate planning becomes very, very important. So corporate planning, in addition to all that, India is already a large country, geographically a vast country, and it has got a two-tier political system. We have both central government, we have state government, and each will have their own sets of policies. And we have a very diversified country in terms of culture, attitude, food, and climate. And before liberalization, no, the whole country was treated like a single market. Today, every MNC have understood very clearly each state is a market in India. No, for example, suppose you have some strategies for Tamil Nadu, those strategies may not be fully relevant if you're going to apply in, let us say, in Haryana or in Madhya Pradesh. So that means each market is unique in its own way. So you have to evolve your plan, really appreciating the local state's specific issues in terms of it may be a culture, it may be attitude, or it may be a purchasing power or whatever it is. So with the onset of liberalization and opening up of economy, not only MNCs are coming up in a big way, there are a lot of Indian companies are becoming very powerful. They're all emerging Indian MNCs. For example, you take companies like Reliance Group, it's becoming quite stronger, Adani Group, Amul. Like that, we are seeing large number of companies, they're trying to become quite stronger, and this provide a real challenge to many of the MNCs coming to India. So Indian companies are now operating on almost on par with the global companies on several fronts. And we have a large market segments. Earlier, because the market was not really opened up and the consumers' pain points are not really addressed there are not much of market segmentation issues there. So, but now, with the market opening up and new players coming up, everyone is trying to have their own niche for the products are offering, and the markets are getting in segment. For example, if you take washing powder market, we have the premium products, we have the popular products, we have the mass product. So we have surf and all that for the premium market, we have Rin and all for the popular, and we have this wheel washing powder for the mass market. So like that, even if you take the automobiles, we say the Maruti's leadership position or the market share in the top brand selling in the country. For the last 10 years, Maruti is able to have a majority stake in many of the segments they're operating there. So that shows their ability to understand the customer very closely, understand their pain points, and able to offer this products exactly fitting to the segment without cannibalizing their own products. So the understanding of the Indian market has become very important, and unless you do that, you may not be able to be very successful in doing the market segmentation. And there is a need to deploy customized logistic solution for the product movement. This is another very important area. Many MNCs may even fail that. India has got a very large array of options available for logistics, starting from your road, your rail, air, coastal movement, inland waterways, camels, yachts, and mules, and all that. Suppose, let us say, you are trying to use a typical road movement for, let us say, Rajasthan, desert areas like Rajasthan, it may not work. You might use camels. Similarly, suppose you go to places like Kerala. So, unless the inland waterways will be the ideal solution for the logistics, not the other usual movement. So like that, you have to be very dynamic, and you have to have an appropriate logistics model in place. Then only you'll be able to have even the last mile connectivity. And the value for many customers. Indian customers cannot be taken for granted. In fact, many MNCs just think that they'll be able to make the products available because it's an MNC product. It is tested in so many countries. No. Unless you provide value for money for the customer, you may not be able to be successful. There are many companies I find doing business in India is not very easy, particularly from the customer point of view. Already you have seen General Motors said that India is a too complex market. MAN Trucks has said it is too complex market, and even Ford, even Ford initially they go on a joint venture with Mahindra and Mahindra. Then they said they're going to go alone, and after a long journey as a solo player, again they decided to go with a joint venture with majority control to Mahindra and Mahindra. Simultaneously, Ford is also seriously thinking about their operations in India. So like that, lots of things are happening. Even you would have seen the Honda cars, Honda also examining. All basically because India is not a very easy market. So unless you are very clear about what exactly the customer's expectations in terms of their offerings, in terms of the cost, you may not be quite be successful. But those who understood the market, they're able to do extremely well. For example, if you see that Daimler-Benz, they're doing extremely well in terms of they're providing a real challenge and competition to even the other people like your Ashok Leyland and Tata Motors. because that Bharat Benz is doing extremely well in terms of meeting the exact customer's requirement. Volvo is again, like Volvo has understood that going solo in Indian market is not good, so they decided to go along with Asian Motors, and then now they're able to do extremely well, even though they are not really offering as a brand to the commercial vehicles. They're very successful in their bus segment. And then again, Indian consumers are all very, very innovative consumers. One of the interesting examples I want to cite here is only the printing cartridges. So many of these printer companies, earlier they thought that by offering this printer at a very cheap price, they'll be able to create a large market for the consumers. But Indian consumers are all very, very, as I told you, so they're all very innovative, and the re-inking is a big blow to some of the printer manufacturers. So with at a very fractional cost, people are able to re-ink the cartridges, and so this people have to really re-look into the entire strategy itself. So if you want to put all these complexities, like the challenges to the micro environment, challenges to the macro environment, and also the various internal environmental factors, so the corporate planning plays a very, very important role in shaping the entire organization. It is also very, very important for a large groups like Tata Groups or Reliance Group or Birla Group, where they have multiple organizations. Each organization has got their own structure. Some may be a joint venture, some a joint venture with a majority stake, a joint venture with a minority stake, or an equal joint venture, or it may be a divisional structure. So for all such type complexities, the corporate planning provides a comprehensive, holistic, and a uniform solution across the group. So corporate planning basically uses a framework, a typical strategic management framework, wherein the mission statement guides the whole process. They churn basically they scan the environment, keeping the strength and weakness in the mind, and trying to identify the opportunities and also addressing the various threats they're likely to face. And so we'll try to understand what exactly the mission statement is all about. Let us look into some of the organizations doing the same business. For example, let us compare Arvind Hospital and Agarwal Hospital. Both are basically in the eye care, but still, like Arvind Hospital's thrust is different and the cost structure is different compared to Agarwal Hospital. In fact, I was suggesting to some of my friends to go to the Arvind Hospital, recently come up in Chennai. It's a 7-story building. I told them you can go and get a free surgery done there, but they're not willing to believe. But Arvind Hospital is actually typically a community-based eye hospital where the free surgeries are offered to anybody else. I mean, anyone else without any conditions attached. Whereas Agarwal Hospital, eye hospital is a typical commercial hospital. Similarly, if you compare Lufthansa and Emirates, so you'll have different perception about both the organization. Both are very successful organization. Both are very dynamic organization, but still your perceptions are all different. Similarly, the case with CMC Hospital and Apollo Hospital. Both are basically in the healthcare, but still when I say Apollo, your perception will be something, and when I say CMC Hospital, your perception will be something. Similarly, the case with here, Times of India and Hindu. Why there's a change in perception taking place? All basically because the organizations are driven by the business mission and not by the name or the articles of incorporation. So the mission is a one. So only a clear definition makes possible a clear and realistic business objectives, and accordingly the organizations get a different message to the consumers. Why a mission statement? One of the important requirements to develop a mission statement is to distinguish one organization from other similar organizations. So it's very, very important. If there are going to be about 10 banks, how my bank is going to be different from other banks? If there are going to be large number of automobile companies, how my product or how my organization should be perceived from other organizations differently. People feel that today Maruti is a typical Indian organization. It's a value for money customer, and the total cost of ownership is very low. So all these things because the way Maruti would have had the mission statement as compared to other people. So it is very important to distinguish one organization from other similar organization. It is a declaration of organization's reason for existence. So through your mission statement, you are declaring your reason for existence. It's very, very important, because unless this is very clearly communicated, people at different levels, they will have different perceptions and they'll have different communication about the organization existence. So this will help to provide a unified communication. And it has to be obviously backed by specific objectives and strategies. And it basically reveals the long-term vision of the organization in terms of what it wants to be and whom it wants to serve. So these two are very, very important. So what it wants to be in the future and whom it wants to serve. So all this thought process is putting into in the mission statement and the vision statement. A mission statement defines the company's business, its objectives and its approach to reach those objectives. It is more of operational in nature, or it is want to give a shape what exactly it wants to do. Basically, it provides an action plan. Whereas a vision statement describes the desired future position of the company. I will just give you the vision and mission statement of Sankara Nethralaya, another typical one of the global eye hospital. You will be able to appreciate better. You see the vision statement of Sankara Nethralaya. It says, be the center of excellence in delivering total eye care for all and spreading knowledge through education and training and carrying India-centric research for alleviating visual morbidity. So it's a very interesting one. So they want to be a center of excellence. So in delivering the eye care, they want to be a center of excellence, and also they want to spread the knowledge through education and training. So the thrust seems to be quite interesting. So the mission statement says to provide total eye care solution of highest standards to all sections of the community. So they're defining who exactly is the consumer through a team of competent, committed, and compassionate professionals. So who is going to provide eye care in a patient-friendly environment? They're also defining the environment. So they're defining the environment, they're defining the service provider, they're defining who is the final customer. So this is a beautiful mission statement, a very simple mission statement of Sankara Nethralaya. No doubt Sankara Nethralaya is a globally known, research-oriented, total eye care solution provider in India. What are the components normally included in the mission statement? Normally we have the customer, we have the products and services, we have the geographical territory, whether it is a technological thrust, and also what are the various economical objectives, what are your values, beliefs, philosophical priorities, and organization strengths and competitive advantages, and also what are your social responsibilities, and what is your attitude towards your employees. So not all the components will be included in all the mission statements, and normally these are the major components considered in many of the mission statements. You may have few or you may have everything. It is left to the organizations to take a call. And let us quickly see the mission statement of General Electric. So General Electric vision statement says to become the world's premier digital industrial company, transforming industry with software-defined missions and solutions that are connected, responsive, and predictive. So we are now in a connected world, So today, each and every equipment need to be digitally connected. For example, even Tesla is saying, in case your car gets stuck in the middle of the road, you just inform that service provider. That's all. Your car will be remote basis. It will be repaired there, and then you'll be able to pick up the car faster. If you see the color sorters that is operating in majority of the rice mills, which are all located in very remote location, most of these color sorters are all monitored by that parent company sitting in Europe. So even though this, they need only a telephonic link. Because the color sorters is a big game changer in all these rice mills, where they're able to produce a very high quality rice thanks to the color sorter. So General Electric says all the machines should be software defined machines. So the machines, they should be able to talk to each other, they should be able to talk, they should be able to link up to any network. And that's very important. And mission statement of General Electric says to invent the next industrial era, to build, move, power and cure the world. So it's having a very globalized approach. Let us see the mission statement of Google. It says our company mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally available, accessible and useful. So so now having seen that, so now we understood what exactly the mission statement. So now I am scanning the environment and trying to identify the opportunities and addressing the threats using my strengths and weaknesses. So I will be having different strategic options to pursue with. So what are the various strategic options I am talking? It can be a conservation strategy, like what Bajaj Auto is trying to do. Bajaj Auto continued to focus mainly on the two-wheeler, only to a very limited extent on three-wheeler. when the government of India opened up the automobile sector for cars for the first time in the country, lot of foreign players wanted to join Bajaj Auto. Similarly, when the British land was trying to sell their shares to Indian customer, and a lot of financial institutions requested Bajaj Auto to take up the shares of Ashok Leyland. But finally, Bajaj said, no, we want to concentrate only on two-wheelers, only to some extent three-wheeler. And recently, even Bajaj, even the two-wheeler, they're very clear about going only for motorcycle. Only with this electric mobility now they're trying to come back with the scooters also. The Chetak is coming with a new avatar. Or it can be a product development. You have the same market, but you keep on churning out new products. For example, Amul is talking, they're going to launch 2 products every 2 months. Already Amul has got a large battery of products, and again they're going to come with a more number of products because they have a large amount of milk to convert into very value-added products. Or it can be a market development. So IKEA is trying to develop different markets in India. They're planning to create about 10 IKEA stores or IKEA malls, and very recently they talked about opening IKEA mall in New Delhi also. So like that, IKEA is concentrating more on the market development in India because the product offerings are reasonably standardized. Or it can be an horizontal integration. You try to grow by taking over your competitors, like what EAD Parry has done in case of some of the units in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. Probably, I think Tamil Nadu, they may not be very keen because the sugar industry is not doing quite well in Tamil Nadu. Or it can be a vertical integration. Reliance, if you see that it's one of the highly integrated organization, starting from your crude oil exploration till the final various petrochemicals and the fiber textiles and all that. Reliance is very beautifully integrated organization in terms of vertical. It can be a forward integration moving towards the customer, or it can be a backward integration that is sourcing your own raw material. So both are possible. Maybe your type of capabilities you require for forward integration is more of marketing. Maybe in backward integration you require more a deeper pocket. You need a lot of money to invest to become a backward integrator. Or mergers and acquisitions. If you see the major IT companies, they always give a lot of targets and thrust on mergers and acquisition because they want to bring some uniqueness to the organization. So they're always working on smaller companies who have a lot of technological strengths and they have some very unique products and services. So they identify those organizations trying to integrate along with them. So TCS, Infosys, Wipro, or even your Tech Mahindra. So they all focus a lot of things on mergers and acquisitions. Of course, innovation is one of the important things today. Every organization, every step, you have to be innovative. So it will become a very global phenomena. Or it can be joint venture. L&T is a very typical case where they operate with a lot of joint ventures. One of the very important things that is required in joint venture is that you should be able to work along with the people with a different chemistry, because each organization has got its own value systems and all that. So if you are a successful joint venture player, that means you are a very flexible player. In fact, L&T is all even the emerging areas, for example, the metros or even this nuclear power plant construction. So everywhere L&T will be the first company to be considered in India whenever a foreign player comes to India. Then you have a concentric diversification, related diversification. So a lot of examples you can think about. I just only mentioned here only ITC and Adani. ITC, for example, earlier there was basically a cigarette company. For the cigarette product, you require a lot of paper. That's why ITC took over Bajaj and paper boards. And with a lot of paper under the disposal, ITC thought, why not we go for stationaries, which is there are no organized players available. At the same time, the cigarette retailing itself, a big distribution network was available. ITC thought, why don't we utilize the network for creating FMCG products? So slowly, ITC is emerging as a major FMCG player, a major player for producing bakery products, biscuits, and also your cosmetics and all that. And it is also trying to launch a lot of the products available from the hotel business to the Kitchens of India brand name. So like that, ITC is one of the important players in the concentric diversification. Similarly, Adani Group, you see there, they're working on a lot of these infrastructure projects, power plants, ports, and all that. And conglomerate diversification, Tata Group is a very typical case. Earlier, already the Tata Group is a very diversified organization. In between, there is some amount of restructuring was happening. They were trying to sell off some consumer brands like Tomco and all that. And again, Tatas are trying to revive the whole thing, and again they're trying to go in the conglomerate diversification mode. And divestment, of course. Divestment is depending upon your dynamics of the market, depending upon the way you are handling your cost, certain times you may have to divest. Even Citibank is very seriously thinking about divesting their consumer business in India and few other geographies in the world, basically to handle the cost. It can also be a closure. Now you're seeing the Jet Airways and Kingfisher are closed and they're trying to revive it. And in case the revival is not possible, then finally they may have to go for liquidation, what Standard Motors faced some time back. In fact, the liquidation was a very difficult process earlier, but the government of India did a lot of things as part of ease of doing business and made the liquidation process much faster because a lot of legal hurdles were there, and today things are reasonably better now. So with all the strategic options, you will not be able to pursue all the strategic options. So you will be able to pursue a few of the strategic options depending upon your own strengths and depending upon your weaknesses. So you will be having a choice set of strategic options. So once you finalize the strategic options, so you may have to accordingly evolve your long-term objectives and also appropriate corporate policies. Let us see what type of long-term objectives you're talking about. Normally, the strategic planners establish long-term objectives in 7 areas. So one is the profitability. How I would like the margins to improve. I would like the margin to improve from 5% in 2021 to 10% in 2026. Or my productivity, I want improvement, double the productivity from 1000 cars per day to 2000 cars per day. Or I want to improve my market share. In the next 5 years, I want to be a 10% market share I would like to have. Then what about employee development? We'll see in the next slide. Then you're talking about the employee relation. Suppose in case you face some IR problem, you try to have zero IR problem in the next 5 years. That's what Sundaram Fasteners did. Then you can think about even technical leadership or technological leadership as one of your long-term objectives, like what Maruti is doing. So when the LPG was decontrolled, Maruti immediately brought in the dual fuel car with LPG. Similarly, Maruti wanted to address the pain points of the urban driver. So they introduced a manual automatic transmission kit. It is a very big boon to the Indian urban drivers because not only your capital cost is under control, your operating cost is also not going up, so it is a big success. Whereas earlier when Maruti introduces automatic transmission, it is a big failure because it resulted in higher capital cost and also your fuel economy is coming down. Whereas your MAT2 kit, your capital cost is not going up because your operating cost is remaining the same. It's a big. Similarly, Maruti is also working very aggressively on hybrid cars. This is one of the reasons why Maruti decided to go for cross-badging along with Toyota. So there's a mutual understanding between Toyota and Maruti, Suzuki in terms of how exactly to play the Indian market very effectively, using that Maruti's large market share and Toyota's technological marvelance. Then finally, it may be a public responsibility. That also can be your long-term objective. For example, I'll say I would like to adopt about 1,000 villages in the next 5 years. So like that, we can have long-term objectives in 7 areas. The next slide, we'll see what is the long-term objective talking about employee development. So here I have mentioned about 6 people's name. Lucy Modi, Mulkokar, Kohli, Ajit Kelkar, Tabakawala and Darbari Seth. So what is the speciality or what holds all these people together? They are the people who created the different empires in Tata Group. Lucy Modi created the Tata Steel, Mulkokar created Tata Motors. In fact, Mulkor is actually Sumant Mulkokar. That's why the Tata Sumo was named after him. And Kohli is considered as the father of Indian IT industry. In fact, even before the IT boom came, TCS opened offices and all over the world. People say if you go to any country, you can do 2 things. One is a TCS office, another is a State Bank of India branch. So that is why both these organizations, even before that liberalization of economy, globalization, all that, they opened their businesses all over the world. Indian Hotels, Ajit Kelkar, he is a person who has created the complete Taj group of hotels. And Tabakawala is a man who created that marketing arm of Tata's, namely the Voltas. And finally, Darbari Seth created the Tata Chemicals. So this is a very difficult long-term objective, but still JRD Tata were very successful in identifying the people to create. There are so many big conglomerates within the Tata Group itself, thanks to his vision, thanks to his ability to pursue this particular objective. Then what type of long-term qualities this long-term objective should have? One is definitely they should be flexible. It is very, very important. and we should be able to measure them, because unless you measure it, you may not know where exactly you're standing. Then it should motivate the people, the employees and other people, and it should be suitable to the culture of the organization. Very, very important. If you see, compare the TVS group and amalgamation group. So both are the pioneers in creating the auto component base in Tamil Nadu. And now you see the journey. So TVS has really gone so big, whereas amalgamation group, for various reasons, they were not able to really exploit the opportunities fully. So culture plays a very important role in any organization, and understandable by all the organizations, very important. If you go to the Arvind Hospital, starting from the CEO to nurses to the housekeeping staff, everyone is clear about the customer service. In fact, if you go to the free hospital in Madurai, you'll be surprised to see the ability to provide the quality of service to some of the very, very poor people. You may even think they're all beggars sitting there, but actually they're all the patients waiting for some eye care, and this staff are able to identify them so beautifully. So the long-term objectives need to be understood by everyone in the organization. To that extent, it should be very simple. It should be understood, widely circulated to everyone. So finally, the corporate planning provides a platform to meaningfully link the various stakeholders in the organization. So corporate planning cell. So it may be a cell of about 10 people or 20 people. It will not be a very large department, but it's a very skilled, people with a lot of specialist skills are available. They're able to link up the internal environment and also the external environment, namely the micro environment and the macro environment. So this provides a beautiful platform. So corporate planning is the one that provides the platform for all the member companies in the group. So the group may be having a large number of companies, divisional structures, everything will be there, joint ventures. So it will provide a uniform framework. So I think it is right to say the corporate planning is a nerve center. So from the corporate planning, you are evolving the long-term planning. From the long-term planning, you are evolving the medium-term planning. From the medium-term planning, you are evolving the short-term plan. From the short-term plans, you are evolving the operations plan. So obviously, the corporate planning is the nerve center of the organization, and it provides, it is able to balance organization's growth, able to identify the opportunities, able to address the threats faster, leverage the strengths effectively, and address the weaknesses and trying to mitigate the various weaknesses and all that. So corporate planning plays a very, very important role. Like a human brain is very important for the existence and growth of the individual, corporate planning is very important for the existence and growth of our large corporates. So it is always right to say corporate planning is a nerve center of an organization. So hope all of you would have enjoyed this presentation. I think you would have got a fairly good view about what exactly is a corporate planning. So thank you for your patient listening. Thank you very much.